Welcome you all. Dear students, my name is Narendra from Civil Department. I am going to explain about disaster risk reduction programs in India, the activities of the National Disaster Management Authorities of India. So in this regard, we got the introduction part about the disaster risk reduction. The India beginning highly vulnerable to natural disasters such as earthquakes, floods, cyclones and droughts, has implemented various disaster risk reduction programs under the guidance of the National Disaster Management Authority that is belongs to Indian government. These programs focus on the preparedness, mitigation, response and recovery process and the disaster programs in India, which is dividing into several uh, stages. National Disaster Management Plan that is conducted in 2016, updated in 2019 and 2022. National Cyclone Risk Reduction Management Project that is NCRMF and Abda Mitra Community Based Disaster Preparedness and School Safety Program and Urban Earthquake Vulnerability Reduction Program that is National Adoption Fund for the Climate Change and Dam Rehabilitation and Improvement of the project. So these are the programs which are conducted in India. So first of all, we see the National Disaster Management Plan, that is NDMP. It was invented in 2016 and updated in 2019 and 2022. The main objective of this program is India's first comprehensive disaster management plan, and which is aligned with the second framework for the disaster risk reduction. The main key features or key points about this program is which will be covers all phases like prevention, mitigation, preparedness, response and recovery phase, and it will be focused on climate change adoption and community based disaster risk reduction. And the strengths of this program is early warning systems and disaster response mechanisms, and it will be encourages the use of the technology and innovation like GIS mapping and artificial intelligence and drones, like that the encourages of the technology for the innovation process. So where we implementation this kind of plan, that is NDMA and state disaster management authority, so coordinates the implementation of the this kind of plans. Coming to the second one, National Cyclone Risk Reduction Mitigation, that is reduction of the vulnerability of coastal community to cyclones. The main key activities of this one is construction of cyclone shelters and resilient infrastructures like construction of a road, development of the bridges and strengthening of the early warning systems and improving the excavation planning process, and the coastal embankments and mangrove plantation for the protection of the coastal areas, like the coastal erosion maybe happens because of heavy tides may be happening or heavily occurrence of the tsunamis in the ocean, and funding process will be World Bank supported initiatively and implemented by the National Disaster Management Authority in cyclone prone states. Then coming to the Apta Mitra, that is community based disaster preparedness. The main objective of this one is the community volunteers in disaster response risk skills. The key activities are the training in search and rescue operations, first aid centers and emergency responses providing, and the deployment of the volunteers in flood prone and earthquake prone regions. The community engagement for the spreading awareness about the disaster risk reduction, and it will be implemented by the NDMA, SDMA. SDMA means State Disaster Management Authority, and district authorities also there, District Disaster Management Authority, that is DDMA. So these will be implemented this kind of plans. Then school safety programs also conducted in the India, and enhancement of the disaster preparedness in schools and reduce the risk for the children. What type of key activities or key roles may be implemented by the school safety programs? The disaster preparedness training for the students and teachers. How can we rectify or how can we overcome the disasters and how can we escape from the disasters? This kind of training programs will be conducted by the disaster risk reduction programs, and conducting of the earthquake and fire drills in schools and retrofitting of the school buildings to improve the strength of the structural safety. The implementation of this kind of plan by the NDMA, National Disaster Management Authority of India, and Ministry of Education, and also non-government organization bodies. Then coming to the urban earthquake vulnerability reduction program, that is UEVRP. The main objective of this one is strengthening the earthquake preparedness in urban areas. So many urban areas will be kind of the this kind of earthquakes or floods may be happening. So the main key activities of this plan is retrofitting of critical buildings like hospitals, schools, government offices, and providing the engineers training. Architects and masons also will be get the training process to get the earthquake resistant construction areas. The public awareness campaigns also provided on earthquake safety measures. The main target states are high risk seismic zones like Delhi, Gujarat, Assam, Himachal Pradesh, etc. Then coming to the National Adoption Fund for the Climate Change. This the main objective of this plan is supporting climate adoption and resilience building projects. The main key aspects or activities are implementation of the drought resistant agricultural areas and flood management programs in vulnerable areas. How can we manage the floods will be occurs, how the rainwater will be harvested, that will be conducted by this plan, and afforestation projects to prevent the soil erosion and landslides. The main funding will be provided by the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. Then coming to the dam rehabilitation and improvement project, this is the last one, and this one is the main objective of this one is strengthening the dam construction and safety and prevent the dam related disasters. Maybe the dam related disasters will be happens like earthquakes, like floods maybe happens because of heavy rainfall will be occurred during the monsoon seasons, and strengthening of the dam structure to prevent the failure, and flood control measures also provided in downstream areas, and use of advanced monitoring systems for the dam safety, so which was implemented by the Ministry of Jai Shakti and NDMA, National Disaster Management Authority of India. Then coming to the second policy, that is National Disaster Management Authority and its activities. So what are the main activities of National Disaster Management Authority? So the main activities is the structure of National Disaster Management Authority and key functions and responsibilities of NDMA, and what are the role during major disasters in India. So first of all we go for the what is the structure of the National Disaster Management Authority. The main structure of the NDMA is the chairperson, the Prime Minister of India. Now the Prime Minister of India is Narendra Modi, and vice chairperson appointed by the government, and the members, the experts in disaster management, engineering, health and public safety. Those are the group of members will be involved in the NDMA. And state and disaster authorities also will be divided, that is state disaster management authorities and district disaster management authorities. This is the structure of the National Disaster Management Authority of India. And what are the key functions and responsibilities of the NDMA? The main key functions and responsibilities of NDMA is disaster risk reduction and mitigation planning, the formulation of the national and state disaster management plans, and conducting of hazard mapping and vulnerability analysis, and promoting disaster resilient infrastructure in high risk areas. Then what are the emergency preparedness and early warning systems? So here the emergency preparedness and early warning systems are coordinating with IMD. IMD means Indian Meteorological Department, and ISRO, Indian Space Research Organization, for the cyclone, flood and earthquake warnings, and strengthening early warning systems for the tsunami and landslides and heat waves, deploying National Disaster Response Force NDRF for the rapid actions. So those people will be take the actions for the earthquake prone areas. Whenever the earthquake will be occurs, the NDRF members will be comes together and they will be operate the rescue operations. So, how the capacity building and training will be provided? The key functions and responsibilities of NDMA. The third one is capacity building and training programs, conducting of disaster simulation exercises and mock drills, and training government officials, first response responders, and community volunteers also, and establishment of the disaster management training centers across and India. Then coming to the infrastructure development for the disaster resilience. The implementation or implementing seismic retrofitting for the schools, hospitals, lifeline buildings like hotels, or if you take offices, and strengthening of the dam safety and river embankments also. The developing of the flood resistant housing in vulnerable areas. Those are the things will be happens or developed by the infrastructure development for the disaster resilience planning. And public awareness and community engagement also very much essential, and about the getting of the awareness about the each and every hazards may be happening. So like running TV, radio, social media campaigns on disaster preparedness, conducting of school and workplace safety programs also very much essential for the getting of the awareness and community engagement process, and promoting local self-help groups for the disaster resilience. So these are the things will be comes under public awareness and community engagement process. Then coming to the international cooperation and policy formulation. This is very much essential. Wherever we are going to be frequently occurring of the disasters or hazards, the aligning India's disaster risk reduction strategies with the CENDIO framework and SDGs, the collaboration with the UN agencies for the disaster risk reduction, conducting of the joint disaster risk response exercises with the neighbor countries. So that will be more helpful for the getting of the cooperation with the international bodies. Then coming to the NDMA's roles during the major disaster India. So when we take the disasters, NDMA responses will be taken. In 2004, Indian Ocean tsunami set up India's first tsunami early warning system. In 2008, Bihar floods. So coordinated large-scale evacuation and relief operations will be taken by the NDRF. And 2013, Uttarakhand floods. Deployment of the NDRF, Army and Air Force for the rescue operations. 2018 Kerala floods used satellite and drone technology for the disaster assessments. And 2020 COVID-19 pandemic, it will be led lockdown planning, quarantine centers, and relief distribution process. These are the things will be happens by the Indian government. And coming to the conclusion, the India has a comprehensive disaster risk reduction framework, and it will be led by the NDMA. NDMA means National Disaster Management Authority of India, with several programs focused on mitigation process, preparedness, response, and recovery operations. So, however, the more number of challenges such as infrastructure gaps may be happens, and climate change risks will be happens, and community participation still need attention will be also a crucial point of disaster risk reduction process. The more number of challenges will be takes, and it will be comes together for the stopping of the disaster risk reduction process, like infrastructure gaps, climate change risk, and community participation. You know, community participation is a very much essential for the getting of the rescue operations while the disaster will be happening. So strengthening of the early warning systems also very much essential for the getting of the awareness among the people, and local capacity building also very much needed, and climate adaptation will be crucial for the India's future disaster resilience. So these are the things will be happens because of disaster risk reduction. So many things we have discussed. What type of disaster risk reduction and how many areas it will be happens. So by this way we can get the knowledge about the disaster management plan. So number of plans we have seen in 2016, and also National Cyclone Risk Mitigation Project, and Apta Mitra community based disaster preparedness. It will be also implemented by the Indian government, and also school safety programs. It will be also conducted by the disaster risk reduction programs, and urban earthquake vulnerability risk reduction programs, and national adaptation fund for the climate change, and finally the dam rehabilitation and improvement projects. Also we have seen the different programs conducted by the disaster risk reduction areas. So these are things we can see, and finally we can get the knowledge about the preparedness, mitigation, response, and recovery process. So anyway, when we go for the when we go for the knowing of the disasters, this is a disaster management cycle only. So cycle means so the people who are preparing for the disaster, or preparing for the overcoming for the disaster. So preparedness is very much needed, and mitigation process also needed, and response, and also recovery operations. It is a cycling process: preparedness, mitigation, response, and recovery process. And then we go for the preparedness process and mitigation and response and recovery operations. Preparedness means before occurrence of the disaster we are preparing. Mitigation means how can we rectify or how can we overcome the disaster facing. And response, what we do finally after completion of the disaster area or disaster process. And then we go for the recovery operations. By this way, we conclude the number of disaster risk reduction programs under the guidance of the National Disaster Management Authority of India. So, thank you very much for your understanding and for your kind listening.